Hey guys, in this video I want to talk about feeding your rats different types of food, from the tasty to the toxic. And let me tell you, there's a whole bunch of different types of food that you can feed to a rat. They're pretty much omnivores, and if you have a pet rat, or maybe you have a few rats, or maybe you're on a level like I am where you breed hundreds of rats. I actually breed these rats for my snakes, and I have a couple racks with hundreds and hundreds of rats in there, and I actually went through quite a few transitions as far as the type of food that I feed my rats. When I first started out, I actually had my rats in glass aquariums, and I was using these little dishes to feed my rats. And what I did is I actually went to the pet store, and I was just buying all the different pelleted grains and food that I could find. I had it's really inexpensive. You can buy like a whole 50-pound bag of corn for like $8. It's really cheap. And then I was buying bags of bird food and sweet feed, and I actually bought this, it was like a pig pellet. It smelled like licorice and all kinds of stuff, and I mixed it all together and I started feeding my rats. I thought, okay, this is a pretty varied diet. I thought they would do pretty good because I had so many different things in there, and come to find out they were really looking pretty bad over the long term. They started gaining a lot of weight, and I think a lot of them were passing away prematurely, and you could tell they had health issues because it wasn't a balanced diet. And I was really surprised that it would have that much of an effect on my rats. So what I did from there is I switched over to a really high quality Missouri 6F. It's fairly expensive. I'd say it's probably about $25 for 50 pounds, but I think that should be the #1 staple as far as feeding your rats. And I've been pretty much doing the 6F for, I would say now, a couple of years with nothing else in the diet. And I've noticed that, especially with my white rats, they have some issues with their eyes, especially when they get older. And some of them have had cancer, especially with my white ones. And I'm pretty sure it's from deficiencies in their diet. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of transition from just doing a straight Missouri 6F rodent breeder diet. I actually get that stuff at the feed store. You really can't get it online because the shipping will kill you. You really need to find a feed store where you can get it. But I would say the #1 diet for rats should be the Missouri 6F. And the other thing is there's a whole list of all these different foods. Some of them you can feed to rats, some of them you have to use caution, and some of them are just toxic. And what I'm going to do today is I actually went to the grocery store and I bought a whole bunch of veggies and fruits and nuts and a whole bunch of stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go through each one, show you what I have, and we're going to try to do like a taste test as far as we'll kind of go from tub to tub and see if the rats take it and see if they actually eat that food item. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to try is these Tostito rounds. It's like a little chip you dip in salsa, and you get them, in bags. And pretty much any type of chip or a cracker, saltines, anything like that is completely safe for your rodents. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these, break it into a couple pieces, and see if my rats will take it. Okay, so I'm going to take one of these tortilla rounds and just give it to one of these guys, see if they'll take it. Maybe. Yeah. I think what I might have to do is just drop it in here. These guys aren't really used to eating from my hand, so they might be a little bit skittish. Here you go, buddy. Here you go. Yeah, look at that. Oh, look at that. Well, I don't know if it's going to work very well. What I might do is I might just set it there and see if they actually eat it. Okay, so next on the list are cashews. Cashews are pretty expensive. They're okay for rats. You can feed them cashews. I would probably do the roasted, non-salted cashews and stay away from the excess salt. But I'm going to try to throw a few cashews in one of these rat bins and see if they'll eat it. Okay, so I threw a few cashews in here, and it doesn't look like they've eaten them yet. And it's just been a few seconds and I closed up. These guys are still a little skittish, so I don't know how well this is going to work. Okay, so here's another food item that is safe for rats, and that is a cantaloupe. And of course, for a cantaloupe, we're gonna have to cut it open, and I'll cut it here on my cutting board, and I'll use my knife, and we'll cut it up, and we'll see if these rats will eat some cantaloupe. Okay, so for the cantaloupe, I don't really wanna use the whole thing, and I probably don't wanna use the seeds in the middle. I haven't had cantaloupe in a long time, and this looks really nice and fresh, really good. And what I'm gonna do is just cut a little piece off here, and then maybe just cut a little bit off here, and we'll feed a little cantaloupe to some of these rats. All right, so what I think I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go down the line and, and do a little bit in each tub. And this is kind of interesting because the substrate kind of sticks to it, but we'll just throw it in there and we'll see if they eat it. Probably what I'll do is I'll wait till the end, and then we'll just go down the row and see if they've eaten their food item. So if you're thinking about giving your rats some chocolate, I would definitely stay away from giving any type of chocolate to rats. I know this is toxic to dogs, and they say, especially with the fat and the sugar content so high, I would definitely avoid giving chocolate to your rats. Here's another food item you can give your rats, and that is avocado with extreme caution. I would say if you're feeding avocado, the skin of the avocado is toxic to rats, so do not give them any avocado skin. And I would say the inside of an avocado is really high in fat, so I'd give it to them in moderation. Not too much avocado, you can give them a little bit, but not a whole lot. So what I'm gonna do is open this up, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna give a little bit to the rats, and I really love an avocado with salt and pepper and a little lime juice. If you haven't had it, it is to die for. And what I'm gonna do is feed a little to my rats, and after the video, I'm gonna go and eat the rest of this upstairs in the kitchen. So avocados are kind of interesting, as well as I've actually had the seeds. I've planted the seeds, and you can take the seed and put it in water with toothpicks, and the seed will sprout and grow into a little tree, which is kind of neat. So what I'm gonna do is just take a little bit of avocado, peel the skin off, and I'm gonna give this to one of the rats. All right, so I put the avocado in here, and they are definitely nibbling on it. They like avocado. What I'm gonna do is just go down the line here and kind of show you what's left. This is where we put the cantaloupe. There's one little piece of cantaloupe. It looks like that's a hit. Over here we put the Tostito chip, and that is gone. Over here we put the cashews. Looks like there's a few here left. Maybe they can't see them on the substrate, I don't know, but it doesn't seem like the cashews are a big hit. So here's another food safe item for your rats, and that would be sweet peppers. I would avoid the hot peppers and just use the sweet peppers. I'm gonna cut up a pepper and we'll try it in one of the bins. Okay, so this is almost like a cooking channel. We cut just a few little slices of pepper and we'll throw it in one of the bins. So another thing I noticed when I was feeding my rats bread is the first few times I actually offered it, they weren't really sure what it was, and it was really hard to get them to eat it. And I think they were kind of skittish. They were kind of afraid that they were going to bite me, because they usually don't bite me. You know, they're really gentle, and once they figure out that it's actually food, then they eat it more readily. But I think at the beginning it's really tough. Here's another food good for your rats, and that would be strawberries. So I'm going to cut this one up and try it. All right, so just a few slices from the strawberry here. We'll give that a shot. All right, we'll try this one here. Look at this one, buddy. And I just want to look back in this one to see if the peppers have been eaten. There's a couple there still. Maybe not that hot. All right, so I have a small plate full of fruit, and I'm going to kind of go through and just kind of try a little bit in each bin and see if the rats actually take it. So what I have is I have these blackberries. They call them blackberries, but I think they're actually kind of like a boysenberry. I think they grow on a tree. I've actually seen these. They're not like the regular blackberries that I've seen. I've actually seen blackberries. What I think of as a blackberry is like kind of like a raspberry that is black instead of red. I've seen the real blackberries. I haven't had a real blackberry for a long time. That's what I consider a real blackberry. And then I also have blueberries here. I'm gonna try some blueberries. And then I have some apricots. It depends on where you're from. Apricots, dried apricots are really good. So I'm gonna try some of these in some of these bins and see if the rats like them. So the good thing about a lot of bins is I can try a lot of different things with a lot of different rats. So I'm gonna try just a few of these blackberries, boysenberries or whatever you call them, and see if they actually like these. You can tell they're kind of freaking out. They're not really used to me feeding them, so they're like, what in the world is going on? So next up is some raspberries. We'll try some raspberries over here. I'm just gonna put them on the bedding. You can also put them in a little bowl or something, which is fine. And then over here, I'm gonna try some blueberries on this one, and probably what I'll do is I'll just go through the tubs, and these guys might eat them right away. Yep. They're like, yeah, blueberries are a hit. Yes. All right, so I put some apricots in here, and it looks like they don't really know what they are, or they don't really like them. They're not eating them right away. And I also noticed up here, take a look at this. I'll raise my camera up a little bit more. And this is where I put the raspberries. And it looks like they started eating the raspberries. I saw them kind of holding them in their paws and eating them. They seem to like those. And over here, the blackberries. I see some eating the blackberries. It's kind of interesting. So they're kind of tasting all the foods. It's kind of interesting that some of them, it seemed like the chips were kind of the ones that were gone the fastest. So here's something else that's good for your rats, and that would be an apple. And look at the size of this apple. I don't think I've ever seen an apple quite this big. I found it at Safeway. It's an organic Fuji apple. It's massive. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut a piece of apple and see if the rats like it. All right, so I cut the apple, made a few slices, and it looks like it's a really good apple. It tastes really good. I haven't had an apple that good in a long time. So I have one of these tubs that's really full of baby rats. These are my feeders that I'm actually feeding my snakes, and and they're pretty much, I just sorted them out from, look at that one sleeping, and I just sorted them out from a lot of the females that that had babies, and these were way too big to keep with the mom and dad, so I kind of separated them. We'll see if these guys actually eat the apples. All right, so take a look at this. This is a big sweet potato. Sweet potatoes, if you feed a sweet potato to a rat, especially if it's raw, they say it turns to cyanide in the rat's stomach and will actually kill your rat. And they say if you cook it, it's okay. I would probably just be on the safe side. I would definitely stay away from feeding sweet potatoes. So there's another one you probably want to stay away from, and that would be an onion. Especially if you're feeding raw onions. They say it's not real good for rats, and anything that you have to cook before you feed it, I would probably steer away from it, because if it's not fully cooked, you're risking poisoning your rats. So I would definitely stay away from onions. So here's a pretty common thing that you might have in your kitchen right now, and that is an orange. They say the orange peel and any white part under the peel is toxic to rats. And to be on the safe side, I would just stay away from oranges as well. So if you're from the islands of the Bahamas, you probably know what this is. This is a mango, and when I was down in the Bahamas, we picked these off of the trees, and I've never really had a really good mango until I went to the Bahamas on the island, picked them off the tree, and ate them right on the island. It was amazing, the best mangoes I've ever had. And as far as I know, mangoes are toxic to rats. It says they can cause liver problems and cancer. Stay away from mangoes if you have rats. So this one's kind of tricky. I would say, they say a banana that's yellow and ready to eat is okay for a rat, but a green banana it can be kind of toxic to rats. I would probably stay away from bananas too. So one thing I kind of missed when I was talking about the apple is okay for rats, but the seeds contain a small amount of cyanide, which can be toxic to the rats. Don't feed rats apple seeds. So So it's actually the middle of winter here in Colorado, and this is really out of season. I bought these in a package. This is corn on the cob. It's pretty rare this time of year, and corn on the cob is okay for rats, but they say dried corn is not. I would stay away from dried corn. It's really cheap. I used to buy the big bags, the 50-pound bags for like $8 at the feed store, but you know, the more I read about it, the more I hear, stay away from dried corn. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut a little bit of this corn off and give it to one of my rats and see if they like it. So I cut a little bit of corn off, and I decided just to take a little bit of the cob with it so the little bits of corn don't get lost in the bedding. So I'm just going to throw this in one of the tubs and see if the rats like it. So I have this old female in here. This is actually one of my retired females. These might be from when I used to feed them bread a lot, so they may be used to me feeding them straight from my hand. I don't know. They'll actually take it. We'll see if they actually eat that. So here's the tub that I put the apple in, and it looks like it is gone. Here's the one I just put the corn in, and looks like it's gone too. I think they've eaten the corn. Okay, so here's another food that's safe for your rats, and that would be celery. Fresh celery is fine for your rats. I'm gonna cut up a little bit and throw it in one of these tubs and see if the rats will eat it. All right, so I'm just gonna try a little bit of the celery, and we'll see how that does. So I'm gonna go back to one of these tubs where I already fed them a little something and see if they eat any more. This is the ones with the cashews. I see one little remnant of a cashew left, and let's see if they eat some celery. Here's another safe food for your rats, and that would be raw carrots. You could probably do cooked carrots too. Raw is just fine. So let's try some carrots. I'm just gonna quickly slice some up here. We'll try some carrots. So back when I was making sourdough bread, it was funny. Every time I would open a tub, they would kind of come up to the front, and they would expect the bread all the time. This is interesting. I have the cantaloupe in there. They nibbled on a little bit. I think they decided they don't like the cantaloupe. So we'll put the carrots in and see what they think of those. So the different types of food you can feed your rats is almost limitless. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can feed them. One of them is broccoli. I don't know, there's a lot of people that don't like broccoli. Let's see if rats will actually eat raw broccoli. All right, so broccoli is definitely on the safe list. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut one little piece off and throw it in one of the tubs and see if they like it. So what I might do is just keep going over the same tubs, and that way if I open it up, I know if there's nothing in there and they liked whatever I put in there last. We'll try a little bit of broccoli, see if they like it. I noticed over here in this one, I just kind of glanced in from the top, and it looks like they don't like the cantaloupe that much, or they don't really like the carrots, which is kind of interesting. So here's a food that's safe. It is called, can you guess what this is? This is bok choy. I've never even heard of bok choy. As a matter of fact, it sounds vaguely familiar, but I've never really used it for cooking. And they say it's safe for rats. I'm gonna take a little off. It's almost like I think they use it, it has an interesting smell to it. I've never actually eaten this stuff, but I'm gonna try it in my rats and see if they like it. All right, so for the bok choy, I'm just gonna, what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little bit of the white, and then I'll take some of the green and see if they like either the white or the green. It'll be kind of interesting. So I'm kind of losing track of what was in what tub. I can't even remember what I put in this tub. Let's see if they'll eat this. You want some bok choy? All right, we'll see if they eat that. Okay, let's see if you can guess what this is. This is actually kale, and I've only really ever had kale completely dried, kind of as a dried snack that's heavily seasoned. I've never really actually eaten raw kale. They say it's good for rats, so let's cut a little off and see if the rats enjoy eating some kale. All right, so this is starting to feel more and more like a cooking show. I got all this stuff here. It can almost make a really fancy dish out of it. What I want to do is I'll just take a little piece and see if they eat it. Okay, so in this tub, I'm kind of going back to the beginning. This is the one where I put the celery. It looks like that wasn't a real big hit. Looks like I have a little piece of a cashew left. Maybe they just haven't found it. It's really hard to see in here. And I'll put a little bit of kale in here, see if they eat the kale. So I just ate one of these and it is really super sour. Those are purple grapes. And you know, when I go to the grocery store, I'm almost tempted to pick up one of the grapes and taste it. And I was like, do I really want to buy those grapes? Are they sour? Are they sweet? Sometimes grapes are to die for. They are so good. And sometimes you can hardly even eat them. They are so sour. But for rats, they say purple grapes especially, they say they prevent cancer in rats, which is pretty amazing. I would definitely add grapes as part of the diet for your rats. So for these grapes, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut one into sections and probably just like into quarters maybe. I'm not sure if they would eat a whole grape. I'll just kind of grab the whole thing. This seems like it'd be a little bit easier for them to eat. So I've been pretty much sticking to the same row, so if they get a taste for something, maybe they'll eat something else a little more readily. I definitely don't want them to get out, but we'll see if they eat this grape. And let's see, maybe you can almost see through the top if they eat it or not. We'll come back and check on them. So here's another thing you can feed your rats in moderation only, and that would be cheese. And anything, you know, if I'm reading about it and it says, you know, use with caution, feed in moderation, I tend to stay away from it. You can feed some cheese, but I wouldn't feed a whole lot of cheese. And in this case, I'm just gonna skip it altogether. Here's another one you can feed your rats, and that would be potatoes. You have to really use caution when using potatoes because the eyes where the little sprouts come out, if you actually feed a potato eye to a rat, it's toxic to rats. I would feed potatoes with extreme caution. As long as there's no eyes, it would be fine. So here's another rat-safe food item, and that would be cucumbers. You can feed cucumbers to rats, no problem at all. I want to cut up a little cucumber, and we'll feed it to some rats. All right, I have the mixings of salad right here. I have quite a bit of stuff here. Let me cut up this cucumber, and we'll feed it to some rats. All right, I'm going to try a different tub this time. I'm going to use this on a few more mature rats down here. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go through some of these tubs, and it looks like the kale, the celery, and I have one little nut left that wasn't really a big hit over here in this tub. We're putting a bunch of stuff in here. It looks like there's nothing left. And let's see what else. We had some carrots. Carrots weren't really a big hit. It looks like we got a few nibbles on the cantaloupe. And keep in mind, these guys have really not had anything except just the Missouri food. This one over here, it looks like, don't run away. It looks like they pulled a couple grapes back here. It looks like the bok choy is kind of in the works there. Got a few things in the works as far as the different foods. Let's see down here with the male feeders. It looks like everything we put in here they've pretty much eaten. Looks like the apple was a big hit. So yeah, most everything looks like they ate. Okay, so there's a few other things I want to mention that are toxic to your rats, and that would be peanuts. You definitely want to stay away from peanuts and peanut butter. The other thing is rhubarb. Rhubarb has a toxic amount of oxalates, and the one thing that kind of caught my attention, which I thought was really weird, and that is poppy seeds. They say poppy seeds are not only toxic, but you can actually kill your rat from the toxic poppy seeds, which I thought was really interesting. So if you're using bread or anything that has poppy seeds on it, I would definitely stay away from the poppy seeds. And I would definitely look on the internet. I'm sure there's lists of all the things you can feed and you can't feed, and it's really interesting. Some of the common stuff that you'd find around your kitchen, some of it is perfectly fine for your rats. Some of it is really surprising that it's toxic and you can't feed it or you'll run into problems. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.